Throughout my entire life, I've been an avid reader of many fantasy and science fiction book series. Well, my favorite of all time is undoubtedly George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, and its television adaptations, Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Martin has openly acknowledged historical inspirations for many of the cultures and plot lines in the world of Ice and Fire, including most popularly the English War of the Roses and Hadrian's Wall, which separates much of northern England and Scotland from central and southern England. In this world, the Valyrians are depicted as a once mighty civilization that suddenly gained unprecedented power through the discovery and mastery of dragons. Now, while the Valyrians have obvious influences from the Roman Empire, much less attention has been given to its similarities with another more recent empire and the Valyrians. The empire being referenced being the Comanche Nation of North America. Today's report will explore how the rise of the Comanche Nation mirrors the rise of the Valyrian Freehold in the world of Ice and Fire, particularly in their utilization of superior technology through their discovery and mastery of two very important species, rapid expansion, and the eventual collapse of their dominance. Let's start with the Comanche Nation. Before the arrival of horses, the Comanches were a relatively small and marginalized band of the Shoshone Native Americans living a subsistence lifestyle in the harsh environment of what is now Wyoming. Their survival depended largely on hunting and foraging, and they lacked any strategic or technological advantage over neighboring tribes. Similarly, the Valyrians were originally a minor shepherding culture living on the Valyrian Peninsula. With no great cities, wealth, or military might, they were of little consequence compared to the great Giscari Empire, which had established dominance over much of Essos, which in the world of Ice and Fire, if you're not familiar, is the gargantuan continent directly east of Westeros and is basically Eurasia. The turning point for the Comanches came in the 17th century when they acquired horses from Spanish colonizers, especially in the wake of the Pueblo Revolt, where many of the indigenous Pueblo Native Americans revolted against Spanish colonizers in what is now much of New Mexico. The revolt resulted in the spread of horses into the Great Plains when the Pueblos seized the livestock abandoned by the fleeing Spaniards. Within a few generations, the Comanche had not only adapted to horse riding, but had become the most skilled equestrians on the Great Plains. This mastery of horse warfare allowed them to dominate vast territories, outmaneuvering rival tribes and European settlers alike. The horse enabled the Comanche to transition from a marginalized group to a powerful, formidable military force capable of raiding, trading, and expanding their influence across what is now Texas, Oklahoma, and beyond as far south as central Mexico. In contrast, the discovery of dragons by the Valyrians, who were, as we said previously, humble shepherds, mirrors the transformation of the Comanche after their discovery of horses. After uncovering dragons in the volcanic lands of the Valyrian Peninsula, the Valyrians mastered the art of dragon riding, an ability that provided an unparalleled advantage over their enemies. Dragons, like horses for the Comanche, became not just a means of transportation, but a tool for conquest. The Valyrians used their dragons to defeat the all-powerful, at the time, Giscari Empire in a series of devastating wars, established the Valyrian Freehold, which grew to dominate much of Essos. Meanwhile, in North America, in the real world, once the Comanche had perfected their use of horses, they rapidly expanded their territory, establishing a vast domain known historically as Comancheria. Their dominance was built on their ability to strike swiftly across great distances, launching raids on neighboring tribes, Spanish missions, and later American settlements. Their control over the horse trade ensured a steady supply of wealth and power, allowing them to maintain their dominance well into the 19th century. Likewise, the Valyrians expanded their influence across Essos across a combination of dragonfire and diplomacy, creating a vast and decentralized empire. The freehold was not ruled by a monarch, but by noble dragonlord families who maintained control through a shared understanding that their dragons made them untouchable. The Valyrians' ability to annihilate entire cities ensured their supremacy, much like the Comanches' ability to outmaneuver and devastate their enemies on horseback. Both the Comanche and the Valyrians used strategic raids to establish and maintain their power. Comanche raiding parties would descend on settlements, capturing horses, resources, and captives, often to be sold into slavery or absorbed into their culture. These raids were not just acts of survival, but were central to the maintenance of Comanche hegemony and wealth. The Valyrians similarly engaged in ruthless campaigns to subjugate rival cities and cultures. Cities that refused to submit to Valyrian rule were burned to the ground by dragonfire, ensuring that the fear of Valyria's power was ever present. Much like the Comanches' raids, Valyrian conquests brought wealth, labor, and tribute, which allowed the freehold to maintain its position of power. The Comanches' dominance extended beyond warfare. By controlling key trade routes and maintaining a monopoly on the horse trade, the Comanche ensured their economic power. Horses became a form of currency and a symbol of prestige, which reinforced the social hierarchy within the Comanche society. The Valyrians, too, controlled the flow of wealth throughout the Valyrian Freehold. Their domination of the slave trade and control over key ports in Essos ensured that tribute and riches flowed back to Valyria, strengthening their economic and military hold over the continent. The hegemony of Comancheria eventually collapsed under the pressure of technological advances and the influx of American settlers armed with repeating rifles and a strategy of total war. By the late 19th century, the Comanche were reduced to a shadow of their former power, confined to reservations and stripped of their empire. Similarly, the doom of Valyria marked the end of an era symbolized by the power of the Valyrian Freehold. A catastrophic volcanic eruption, likely triggered by the reckless sorcery of the Valyrians, wiped out the Freehold and brought an abrupt end to their dominance. With the death of the Dragon Lords, the Valyrian Freehold fractured, leading to chaos and the rise of new powers, much like how the fall of the Comanche opened the door for American expansion during the period of Manifest Destiny. While George R.R. Martin has not explicitly cited the Comanche Nation as an inspiration for the Valyrians, the parallels are striking and noteworthy. Both societies rose from relative obscurity and marginalization to dominate vast territories through the mastery of a superior form of transportation, horses for the Comanche and dragons for the Valyrians. Their use of strategic raids, control over trade, and eventual collapse under external pressures suggests that Martin may have drawn on historical analogues beyond medieval Eurasia, which served as the primary influence for much of the cultures and kingdoms of Essos and Westeros. The story of the Comanche and the Valyrians ultimately serve as a cautionary tale of how technological supremacy can lead to both ascension and annihilation.